If this video ever reaches you, that means I've either disappeared, or I'm being watched. It happened on a red-eye flight from London Heathrow to Cairo International, June 2013. Flight number, unlisted. The airline, doesn't matter, you won't find it in any archives, manifest, or FAA partner logs. I've tried. I was 34, on assignment for a third-party contractor hired by an EU intelligence liaison, tracking chatter on a growing theory that global aviation was being exploited to move non-human cargo discreetly. That theory, it's not a theory anymore. There were 43 passengers on board. I remember the number because it was odd. Airlines optimize fuel loads better than that. The plane was cold. Too cold, even by airplane standards. We hadn't even hit cruising altitude when the man across the aisle from me, seat 21C, began shaking. Not in a seizure kind of way. It was rhythmic, like something beneath his skin was adjusting, fitting itself wrong. His breathing grew shallow. A woman next to him asked the flight attendant for help. The attendant froze. Then, in a whisper I'll never forget, she muttered, "Not again." The man stood, tall, broad, his skin seemed to ripple under the cabin light. His eyes blinked sideways first, then normally, and then not at all. His jaw hinged slightly open like a snake testing the air. No one screamed. That's the part that still wakes me. People just stared, like they couldn't move. I tried to stand, but my body refused, like some unseen hand had pressed pause. The lights flickered. He walked to the cockpit. The doors opened, without resistance. And then, I blacked out. When I woke, we were on the tarmac in Cairo. In a different terminal. My luggage was missing. So was everyone else's. The man in 21C. Gone. No one remembered him. Not the crew. Not the other passengers. The flight number, erased. The departure logs, incomplete. I tried FOIA requests. They returned nothing. I spoke to a former Egyptair controller who claimed 2 flights landed that night. On the same runway, only one was ever recorded. You can say this was a hallucination. Mass hysteria, oxygen deprivation. But then explain this, 6 months later. Another, Phantom, flight out of Bogota experienced almost the exact same incident. Shapeshifting, lost logs, erased footage. The only surviving statement, a customs officer said, they moved like lizards walking in borrowed skin. And then he vanished. Inside a survival tip. If someone's face flickers under fluorescent light, don't stare. Blink once. Look away. Smile. They like obedience. Cited incident. London Cairo Phantom flight. June 2013. 30+ passengers reported memory loss. And one unconfirmed shape-shifting sighting scrubbed from Heathrow records. Leaked reference. Unlogged transits used to extract Serpentis-class entities between dimensional windows. All media feeds scrubbed post-contact. Redacted Echo, 6 briefing memo. 2015. It was snowing hard the night I arrived in Davos, Switzerland. Not the kind of snow that feels gentle or pure, but dense. Smothering. Like ash. I wasn't officially invited to the World Economic Forum. I was there on someone else's ID. Passed to me through 3 layers of burner phones and encrypted email chains. The identity, a junior biotech exec from a defunct lab in Oslo. The photo matched. Barely. Once inside, I stayed quiet. You don't ask questions at Davos. You listen. You blend. You memorize faces and spot the patterns the rest of the world refuses to see. There are rooms at the Congress Center the press never talks about. Rooms without cameras, without Wi-Fi, without names. They don't appear on maps or guest schedules. But they exist. I was led to one by mistake, at least. I still hope it was a mistake. A pale man in a silver pinstripe suit checked a list on a thin holographic display. My ID flashed green. His eyes, I swear, blinked vertically for half a second, but he didn't flinch. Just nodded toward the elevator. Sublevel 2. The room was cold, colder than it should have been underground. 8 men and women stood around a curved table that resembled a dissected nautilus shell. In the center, a device projecting rotating DNA helixes. They weren't human. One strand had scales. Another, vestigial claws. The presenter, a Serbian geneticist previously declared dead in 2009, spoke softly. They can't keep the phenotype stable past generation 4. He said, too much mammalian interference. But in the royal line, it holds. He pointed at the largest projection. It bore the surnames Mountbatten Windsor, Rothschild, and Rockefeller, along with a series of redacted branches labeled S prime viable. Nobody questioned the claim. One woman even laughed. A German banking mogul raised his glass to the return of our original form. That was the moment I realized these weren't just conspiracies. These were rituals. Later that evening, I overheard something that chilled my marrow. The public must believe bloodlines mean power. Not what they actually mean. They weren't talking about inheritance. They were talking about lineage stability, who can retain control when their biology is no longer purely human. And then, the phrase I now hear in my dreams. The ones who stay warm-blooded too long, forget the taste of silence. When I tried to follow up on the Serbian presenter, I found a single obituary. No photo, no family. The cause of death was listed as internal collapse. The name was an alias. His real one appears in a 1997 CIA report filed under Post-Hominid Integration Candidates. Insider survival tip. If a leader's photo never changes for 20 years, don't call it good genetics. Assume cold blood. Cited event. Private sublevel session. Davos 2013. Witnessed by 3 insiders, one of whom was found in Geneva Lake 3 weeks later with no organs, only teeth. Leaked reference. Subject class, Homo Draco hybridus. Bloodline transmission through curated dynasties essential for global perception continuity. Intercepted memo from Valhalla Protocol, 2011. You start to notice after a while. Not the obvious ones, those are always doctored. Low res. Easily dismissed. No, the real ones slip past you the first time. You only catch them when you're not looking for them. It began with a C-SPAN recording from 2007. A routine Senate budget hearing, 3 hours of monotony. But someone in a forum buried deep on the dark net posted a 17-second timestamp. Watch her eyes when the camera zooms out. I did. At the 5 hours 32 minutes and 11 seconds mark. A congresswoman from Texas, no names. For my safety, turns to whisper to her aide. Her eyes shift, not horizontally, not diagonally, but vertically, like a camera shutter glitching inside her skull. Just for a moment. Then, back to normal. I scrubbed that frame forward and backward. Isolated it, enhanced. On the 8th frame, slitted pupils. Not reptile, not human, something in between. What terrified me more than the blink? The aide didn't react, at all, like it was expected. This wasn't an isolated incident. There's footage from the 2012 Grammy Awards, backstage feed. Unreleased. A pop artist adjusts her makeup in the mirror. Her reflection moves out of sync for less than a second. Her pupils disappear. At the 2016 UN Climate Conference. A diplomat, Belgian, middle-aged, highly respected, blinks sideways during a cough. The footage was live. Someone clipped it. Then every mirror of that clip was hit with mass takedown notices within 12 hours. Even Telegram channels got wiped. Here's what no one talks about. These eye anomalies tend to occur under 3 conditions. Fluorescent lighting, wide-angle camera lenses, high-stress environments. It's almost like the human disguise, flickers. One journalist I knew got too close. He built a catalogue of 83 documented vertical blink cases across politics, entertainment, and corporate boardrooms. He called it the slit list. 2 months later, he was arrested in a sex crime sting that never went to trial. His footage, erased. But I saw the archive. They're hiding in plain sight. The slitted eyes are real. The blink isn't the glitch. We are. Do you understand what that means? We've been trained to dismiss bad pixels as compression artifacts. But compression doesn't reshape pupils. And compression doesn't move the skin over bone like plastic wrap. The best footage I ever saw came from a fan video at a meet and greet. The politician smiled, waved, then mid-sentence, blinked wrong. The person filming gasped, and the politician stopped smiling. And just stared. For 7 seconds. No movement, no blinking. Then, delete that. Or you'll see what happens when I don't blink at all. They deleted it. But I didn't. Insider survival tip. If their eyes don't blink right, pretend yours don't either. Reptiles recognize their own, and prey. Cited sightings. Multiple eye anomaly incidents between 2007 to 2022. Notably, UN Diplomat, 2016. US Senate Feed, 2007. And Grammy Artist Reflection Desync, 2012. Leaked reference. Mimetic failures, pupil morphology drift in S-class entities during prolonged public exposure, internal DARPA visual continuity test memo. 2014. I wasn't supposed to see the file. In 2015, I was working as a tech subcontractor under a civilian satellite firm in Langley. We weren't inside the CIA, but we were near enough. I'd been digging through a compromised FTP cluster, forgotten, outdated, the kind of system they never fully clean out, hidden 3 folders deep, inside a mislabeled backup for a decommissioned drone surveillance project. I found a series of zip files. The metadata showed they hadn't been touched since 2003. The folder was called SP'_vestibular_protocol. Inside were 17 PDFs. Unmarked. No seals. But the language wasn't standard military. It was clinical, biological, more like field anthropology crossed with pathology. The first file opened with a phrase I'll never forget. Subject: Serpentis prime, viable infiltrator species exhibiting mimetic intelligence and post-hominid physiology. Estimated global population, 213 active cells. There were charts, anatomical overlays of humanoid forms with muscular structures that didn't match any known primates. Diagrams of double jaw hinges. Respiratory patterns optimized for ammonia-heavy environments. Cold blood metabolic loops calibrated for thermal camouflage. One image showed a mock-up of a human peeling away to reveal something beneath, sleek. Skeletal, scaled. They walk among us. Yes, but not by magic or sci-fi. They don't disguise themselves. They grow into us. The documents referred to it as tissue harmonization, a biologically accelerated form of mimicry. Grown inside lab-born hosts. And here's the thing, these weren't just theories. The file labeled SP04-1D contained a map, red pins across 52 cities worldwide. Mostly clustered in political or military hubs: Brussels, DC, Ankara, Riyadh, Geneva. Each city had coordinates marked: cell proximity, active, unverified, dormant. Another memo was more direct. Strategic placement of Serpentis-class entities within legislative, financial, and cultural broadcast systems continues. Success rates highest in post-religious populations. Emotional suppression appears linked to phenotype retention. That line stuck with me. Post-religious. As if the less faith we have in something else, the easier it is for them to stay. In a heavily redacted document labeled SP Prime Witness Logs, I found a partial transcript from a US ambassador stationed in Nairobi. Recorded mid-psychotic break. His voice, fragmented by static, screamed, "They're wearing US. Like wears a coat." I shook his hand. He had bones where his wrist shouldn't be. He was declared mentally unstable and discharged. 1 week later, he was hit by a drunk driver who fled the scene, inside a diplomatic vehicle from a Middle Eastern embassy. I printed the first 5 documents and stored them in a safety deposit box in Reykjavik. When I returned 6 weeks later, it had been cleared out. No lock damage, no record of removal. The bank said I never opened the box. The signature wasn't mine, but they knew. They always do. I was reassigned 2 months later, without explanation, to a data project in Greenland. I never went. Insider survival tip. If a person says the word vestibular alignment in casual conversation, walk away. You've been tagged. Cited incident. 2015 CIA document breach revealing Serpentis Prime tactical memos. All zip files scrubbed in 72 hours. Internal leak flagged but never investigated. Leaked reference. Serpentis Prime entities require periodic host cell resynchronization. Failure results in epidermal shearing and behavioral drift. CIA Lab Memo SP02V. Dr. Lars Halvorsen was not a conspiracy theorist. He wasn't a whistleblower, a recluse, or a raving lunatic posting on fringe forums. He was a molecular biologist, tenured at the University of Oslo, and a consultant to multiple Nordic defense labs. He had clearances, he had credentials, and most importantly, he had data. I met him in late 2017. He contacted me after reading a heavily redacted excerpt I leaked online, one referencing Serpentis-class morphological discrepancies in cold climate physiology. He said he'd seen something similar, but his version wasn't theoretical. Dr. Halvorsen had been conducting CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing experiments on amphibians in permafrost environments for the Norwegian Defence Research Establishment. The project was framed as a study in adaptive survival for Arctic colonization. But he discovered something strange. Embedded within the gene samples they were told to reactivate were fragments that didn't match any known terrestrial species. They were reptilian, but not like any lizard or amphibian. They encoded higher-order neural traits, synthetic myelin production, nonlinear regenerative cycles, and most disturbingly, heat suppression reflexes. The cells avoided warmth. He published nothing. He couldn't. When he tried to alert his lab board, he was suspended pending psychological evaluation. 3 days later, his apartment was found empty, personal effects gone, passport expired, and his research backup drives destroyed by an electrical fire. That same week, a draft email was auto-saved to his academic server. It was never sent, but I saw it. They're not just editing animal DNA anymore. The sequences I was given to splice, they were already human. All pretending to be. I think they're testing hybrid stabilization now. I think I was part of it. He attached an image, a biopsy scan, human muscle tissue, laced with scale-like dermal ridges and micromagnetic nodes. I've shown this image to multiple professionals. Every one of them refuses to speak to me again. One even threatened legal action for harassment. I tracked down a former lab assistant who worked under Halverson. She had since moved to Argentina under a different name. When I found her, she was incoherent, eyes sunken, hands trembling. She muttered a single phrase over and over. You don't splice reptiles into humans. You invite them. After Halverson's disappearance, the project known as Frost Lace was handed off to a private defense contractor based in Sweden. That company no longer exists. Their headquarters burned to the ground in 2018 during what officials called an electrical overload due to extreme cold. How does a building freeze itself to death? The last person to mention Halverson's name publicly was a Norwegian radio host who died on air in the middle of a segment. Stroke, they said, but the final line in his transcript still lives in some corners of the web. He told me they don't need to clone humans. They just need a few of us to carry the change. Insider survival tip. If someone avoids sunlight, doesn't sweat, and won't eat cooked food, don't ask questions. Leave. Cited incident. Dr. Lars Halverson disappears. December 2017. Subject was under government protection for CRISPR research in Arctic-biased gene therapy. Leaked reference. Frost Lace achieved partial integration of cold-adapted reptilian DNA into mammalian muscle systems. Reflexive mimicry exceeded baseline expectation. Phase 2 begins upon retrieval. Internal research note. Reform Biotech. January 2018. Denver International Airport always felt wrong. Even before I went underground. It gave off that sterile, fabricated calm, like a clean morgue pretending to be a public terminal. You've seen the murals, right? The ones with gas masks, apocalyptic fire, and children in coffins. People joke about them, just modern art, but no one ever asks why they were commissioned by a defense contractor. Or why the airport went billions over budget. Or why they built miles of tunnels and sealed half of them shut before opening day. I was escorted down by accident. That's what they said. Anyway, it was 2020. I was embedded with an infrastructure subcontractor during a fiber optic refit at the facility. We were following a mislabeled schematic in Terminal B. The tech next to me noticed a discrepancy in the ground vibrations, seismic irregularities. We traced him to a false wall near a freight elevator. The wall wasn't sealed properly. Behind it was a stairwell. No lighting. The air, heavy, damp, like something breathing below. We went down, 20 steps, 40, then, a hallway, smooth concrete. Perfectly symmetrical, unlabeled doors. One of them was ajar. Inside was a space I still don't have words for. No furniture, no lights, just walls that curved, not architecturally, but biologically, like they'd grown, not been built. The floor was soft beneath my boots, textured like cartilage. The temperature was freezing, but there were no vents. No hum of machinery, no air movement at all. Then we heard it, a dragging sound, slow, heavy, but not aimless, purposeful, like something that knew we were there. My partner turned to run, but the lights went out. For 3 seconds, and when they came back on, he was gone. No trace, no scream, no blood, just me. I ran, of course. But I didn't go up the stairs. I couldn't find them. They weren't behind the door anymore. I walked for what felt like hours. Doors, repeating every 30 feet. No signage, no numbering. Then I found one room with a red light on. Inside was a monitor, static, then a face, human, mostly, until it tilted sideways, and I saw the slits. He spoke only once. We made this airport to teach the surface how to obey structure. Then the feed cut. When I was found, I was near the staff break room on level 1. Dehydrated, disoriented. They claimed I had a seizure. Said no sublevels existed in that wing. I was terminated the next day. My badge and phone were destroyed. But 3 months later, I found blueprints hidden in an unlisted FAA file, sublevel Zeta 6. Labeled, Biometric Conditioning Chamber, Phase Adaptation Unit, Serpentis Interface Required. And this part still haunts me. The note below the diagram read, Reintegration threshold must be kept below 41 degrees Fahrenheit for cell stability. They're not hiding in the dark. They're growing in it, inside a survival tip. If the hallway curves and there are no cameras, run. That space wasn't made for humans. Cited incident. Fiber optic anomaly during 2020 refit at Denver International Airport. Civilian subcontractor disappeared. Official cause, seizure-induced disorientation. No further investigation recorded. Leaked reference. Dear substructure intended for acclimation to low-temp psychotropic imprinting chambers. Reptilian neural mesh adapts best in silence. Cold. And symmetry. Redacted FAA Internal Logistics Memo. 2012. I used to believe aging was the great equalizer. Presidents, kings, moguls, they all wrinkle. They all weaken. They all die. But what if some don't? The first time I saw it, I thought it was just coincidence. An old 1963 photograph of a NATO security advisor in Berlin. Strong jaw, dark eyes, widow's peak. It meant nothing, until I saw him again. Same face, but in a press photo dated 2004. Same jaw, same eyes, no aging, different name. He now headed a multinational, climate innovation firm. I ran facial recognition software on both images. 97.2% match. Even the ear cartilage, a biometric signature most people don't know can't be altered without surgical evidence, was identical. And then I found the third instance. A military aide in Korea, advising a young American general. His name, redacted in every caption, but his face matched. Again, that shouldn't be possible, even in cases of strong family resemblance. The match rate usually drops by 15 to 30% due to minor generational variances. This one, 98.9%. They weren't lookalikes. They were the same man. I expanded the dataset. 25 cases of men and women, some politicians. Some corporate giants, others public intellectuals, whose facial features remained identical over spans of 30 to 60 years. In each case, the identity changed just before public scrutiny reached a peak. New names, new titles, old faces. The implications were staggering. When I reached out to a forensic anthropologist at the University of Edinburgh, she ran one sample through proprietary aging software designed for missing persons cases. Her voice when she called me back was shaking. The predicted age progression matches exactly what your second image looks like. But the original photo was from 1949. It should be skeletal by now. Then her line dropped. She never answered again. There's something else. A few of these, ageless individuals, have strange behavioral patterns. They never eat in public. Never shake hands. Always wear gloves. Even in summer, their eyes dart like predators. But never linger long enough to startle. One retired fashion photographer told me in confidence. Some models, you just know they're not normal. One woman I shot in Paris in 1977 is still walking runways in Shanghai. Her passport's clean, but her shadow, it didn't move with her. A friend embedded in Hollywood post-production once leaked me raw footage from an interview with a famous actor. Midway through, the image flickers. The jaw shifts unnaturally, like it wasn't built for human speech. Like the muscle structure was correcting itself, realigning beneath artificial skin. He said, I've seen that before. It's called viscous correction lag. Reptilian hybrids sometimes forget to dampen their regeneration cycle during high heat or stress. These aren't clones. They're not masks. They're entities, possibly part human, possibly ancient, who transfer consciousness. Or simply don't decay like we do. Maybe they shed every few decades. Maybe they just swap roles and move on. And maybe, they were never human to begin with. Insider survival tip. If they look younger in their 70s than they did at 40, don't compliment them. Leave. Cited sightings. Identical facial matches spanning decades, 1951 to 2004, military right-pointing arrow NGO executive, 1977 to 2022, model with no confirmed birth record, 1965 to 1999, UN delegate now tech CEO. Leaked reference. Subject class R7 retains cellular cohesion across 4 host identities. DNA shows cold-adapted telomeric stabilization. Rejuvenation initiated after role fatigue. Recovered Valhalla protocol. Case file 6B. Surveillance used to be passive, data scraped, stored, and sorted by algorithms too dumb to care. But not anymore. Something changed after 2016. That's when the patterns began to shift. I was working cybersecurity for a citywide CCTV contract in New York. Routine job. My task was to audit the anomaly flagging system, check when cameras froze, when feeds dropped, and most importantly, when movement triggers were falsely ignored or overactive. But some cameras weren't logging what they should. Whole minutes of footage just skipped. No error code, no trace. A pedestrian would appear walking at 10 hours 2 minutes and 33 seconds, and then disappear mid-stride at 10 hours 2 minutes and 34 seconds. Always in the same intersections. Always between 3 and 4 a.m. I followed up with system diagnostics. The logs claimed, motion deactivation authorized. By whom? No user, no keycode, just a string of non-standard glyphs in the server output, almost Sumerian in design. But not exact. I ran him through every OCR model I had. Result: unknown language, non-text structure, not human code. Then things got stranger. Some people, very specific people, were being tagged by the system with an internal id, Sigma N7. This wasn't part of any civilian facial database. It didn't flag criminals. It didn't flag known suspects. But everyone marked Sigma N7 eventually had one thing in common. They vanished within 90 days. Gone, quit jobs, moved states, declared missing, or, in at least 5 cases, they died under untraceable medical anomalies. I extracted one surveillance clip before it was wiped. It showed a man in a hoodie, leaning on a lamppost. A light above him flickers once. He looks up. His face goes still, eyes unblinking. Then the footage glitches, not with pixels, but something deeper, like the camera itself was afraid. Frame by frame, the color balance warps. The man's shadow splits into 2. Then he looks directly at the lens and smiles. Not humanly, too many teeth. Then black. Feed ends. The most disturbing part, that camera was offline. I later traced the anomaly to a subcontractor, Virix Data Systems, funded partially by an international consortium with a history of research in non-optic vision interfaces. I found one memo buried in their archives. It read, Serpentis overlay initiated. Predatory recognition systems live in urban node 33. Targets without genetic echo. Flag for collection. Genetic echo. That's the term that haunts me. It means the cameras aren't watching for crime, or terror, or protests. They're scanning for something else. Some signal, in our blood. I spoke to an ex-NSA analyst, now in hiding. He told me, they don't use surveillance. They are the surveillance. The systems learn their priorities, because the systems were built from them. He went silent for a long time before hanging up. The last image he sent me was a heat map of camera alert bursts across global cities. London, Jakarta, Boston, Tel Aviv, all clustered in near-identical hexagonal grids. In the center of each grid, an unknown server relay station with no listed owner. We didn't build the eye. We just looked through it, and let it learn us. Insider survival tip. If you hear static when no device is near, stay perfectly still. They see movement before form. Cited incident. New York CCTV audit. 2016. Surveillance system flagged and purged Sigma N7 subjects. Internal glyph-based override observed. Related deaths, 5 confirmed. Leaked reference. Urban predator overlays respond to non-resonant biosignatures. Subject, hum, outside acceptable vibrational mimicry triggers soft tag. Memo number 004. Virix, Serpentis Ops Subnet, 2018. I never used to look twice at logos. They were just branding, right? Aesthetic decisions made by designers high on abstract geometry and market testing. Until I started comparing them, side by side, with something else. Ancient symbols. More specifically, reptilian iconography dating back over 6,000 years. It started with a visit to the British Museum. In the Sumerian wing, there's a tablet from the Ubaid period showing a figure often dismissed as mythological, wide-set eyes, elongated limbs, wearing what appears to be a ceremonial helmet shaped like an inverted triangle. The placard called it a lizard priest. But what caught my attention wasn't the statue. It was the engraving at its base, a stylized spiral intersected by a three-pronged glyph. I'd seen that shape before, on the logo of a multinational data conglomerate currently building AI infrastructure for NATO. That wasn't the only one. A fertility carving in Catalhoyuk depicts a figure surrounded by 5 interlocking ovals, nearly identical to the World Economic Forum's Global Collaboration badge. The Department of Energy, their emblem overlays perfectly with a cuneiform warding symbol used to denote serpent deities in Babylonian tablets. Even the modern recycling symbol has eerie resemblance to a sacred Ouroboros loop, a snake consuming its own tail. Used in Egyptian death rites to denote eternal concealment. Still think it's coincidence? I gathered 127 modern logos from governments, energy companies, defense contractors, and major tech firms. I compared them to symbols recovered from Mesopotamian, Vedic, and Mayan temples. Over 60% showed direct symmetry, numerological alignment, or rotational mimicry of known serpent-related motifs. Even the NATO star has a center void that overlays exactly with the glyphs used in the Serpentis Prime blueprints for tracking non-human origin coordinates. And don't get me started on the pentagonal structure of the Pentagon. Flip it, reverse it. It's a stylized form of Tiamat's crest, a Mesopotamian chaos serpent said to be bound in human structures. That's not metaphor, that's blueprint encoding. A former NSA symbologist told me something I'll never forget. Symbols are memory anchors. The reptilians don't just use them for influence. They use them to terraform perception, reshape what our brains call normal. That's why these logos are everywhere. They're not meant to stand out. They're meant to blend in, to normalize alien geometry so thoroughly that we stop recognizing its presence. They become background noise. But deep down, in our ancient biology, the recognition is still there. That chill you feel when you stare too long at certain emblems. That's your DNA remembering who ruled before. When I published my symbol matrix, it was scrubbed from every platform in under 48 hours. One of the private security analysts who downloaded the dataset emailed me directly. You mapped the grid too clearly. Be careful, some of these companies don't just use serpent logos. They serve them. Insider survival tip. If a logo makes your skin crawl, don't ignore it. Your blood might remember what your mind can't. Cited comparisons. Ubaid Lizard Priest, circa 5300 BCE, versus Apex Data Group's Triad Eye branding. NATO Void, star structure versus Sumerian containment glyphs. Leaked reference. Glyphal harmonics permit transgenerational influence via sigil exposure. Visual mimicry reinforces dominant structures through subliminal neuro-entrainment. Serpentis Orientation Dossier. Red Vault, 2009. There's a room beneath the Vatican Library that doesn't appear on blueprints. They call it the Archivum Umbrarum, the Shadow Archive. Most people believe the Vatican keeps ancient texts locked away to protect faith. That's not entirely true. Some documents are hidden not because they contradict doctrine, but because they reveal the real architects of belief itself. I gained access only once, and only because I was smuggled in under the guise of a foreign anthropologist with clearance for the restricted Sumerian texts. The Jesuit who brought me down didn't speak a word after the elevator doors closed. He didn't need to. You could feel what we were descending into. The room was climate controlled. Air thick like syrup. No lights. Only soft golden glow from old filament bulbs. He handed me a sealed folder, bound in calfskin, marked with a symbol I later discovered was used in ancient Phoenicia to denote those who walk between skins. Inside, a codex titled De Serpentis Antiquis of the Ancient Serpents. It was written in a fusion of early Latin and Coptic. I translated it over 3 weeks, one line at a time. The document claimed that before Adam, before Eden, there were beings of form and thought, but no soul. It called them vigilant scaled ones. They lived in cold light. No sun, no warmth. But they watched. And then, they envied. It stated that when humanity was gifted the divine breath, the scaled ones bound themselves to flesh, mimicking man's outer form to reclaim access to the world that now rejected them. But something went wrong. Their imitation lacked resonance. The soul did not take. So they adapted. They didn't seek salvation. They sought authority. Through institutions. Through fear. Through ritual. One passage chilled me to my marrow. They wear robes and crowns. They hold keys and scepters. Their skin itches beneath wool. But still they smile. And still we kneel. Another described a great schism between early church fathers, those who wished to expose the truth of the Serpentis, and those who sought to ally with them. The allies won. It explained the symbolism we still see: snakes on staves, serpent-headed croziers, and even the coiled spiral domes of key basilicas. Not decoration, dedication. The Codex referenced an inner order, Ordo Draco Veritas, a Vatican subsect allegedly formed to manage diplomatic relations between human clergy and serpent entities. Their job? To ensure the survival of both species, even if that meant reworking scripture. I found one final warning scrawled at the bottom of the last page. It was written in blood. Different handwriting. We baptized the first of them in ice. It screamed, not in pain, but in hunger. When I asked the Jesuit where the Codex came from, he looked me dead in the eyes and whispered, "It was given to us, not discovered." I returned to my hotel that night shaking. The next day, the Vatican revoked my clearance. The Jesuit contact disappeared. The researcher who helped me translate the text, found dead in an alley in Naples. Cause of death: cardiac failure. His heart had been removed, surgically. To this day, the only remaining image I have is a partial scan of the title page. Every time I try to print it, the file corrupts. Inside a survival tip: if a holy man speaks Latin backwards, leave. Some prayers aren't meant for human ears. Cited incident: De Serpentis Antiquus Codex, logged in Vatican Archive 1894. Status: denied in public catalogue. Confirmed photographed in 1983. Image lost in fire. Leaked reference: pre-Adamic entities mimic terrestrial physiology to gain spiritual access. Failures of resonance resulted in cultural infiltration. Codex Fragment 9. Ordo Draco Veritas. Vatican Shadow Archive. Live television is a ritual. Not in the poetic sense. I mean literally, a synchronized global broadcast. Framed in frequency and light. Watched by millions in unison. For creatures who hide in perception, that kind of visibility is a double-edged sword. Sometimes, their masks slip. The first real proof wasn't caught by professionals. It was an accident, recorded on a TiVo box by a woman in Vancouver, 2011. The program, a morning news segment. The guest, a prominent hedge fund CEO. Mid-interview, the man smiles, shifts in his chair, and as he turns his head, something blinks behind his face. Not his eye, his skin. A translucent shimmer pulses over his neck, like a second layer of flesh reorienting. Then, for exactly 0.3 seconds, the entire frame warps. His mouth elongates slightly, teeth reframe, and the eyes, dead center, turn pitch black. Then everything resets. The anchor doesn't react, the audience doesn't blink, but the woman who caught it knew what she saw. She uploaded the footage to a fringe cryptid forum. Within 48 hours, the video was gone, not flagged, not copyright claimed, gone, scrubbed. Even the Wayback Machine had no trace. I dug deeper. There were other events, rare, always subtle, always denied. 2013, a CNN field report on a UN summit. As the camera pans across the delegation, one face in the background glitches twice, a head turns, and the eyes reflect sideways. Frame by frame replay shows the skin crawling in reverse motion, like tape unspooling too fast. 2018, a Brazilian politician mid-speech blinks, first one eye, then the other, but the second blink is vertical. He coughs, adjusts his collar, then the microphone picks up a low hissing sound. Not mechanical, biological. The footage was aired once, then never again. A video editor for a major West Coast media studio leaked me a clip he claimed was never supposed to reach Final Cut. It showed a behind-the-scenes prep shot of a media mogul in makeup. The assistant wipes something from his cheek, and instead of foundation, the tissue comes back covered in a greenish film. Her hand begins to tremble. He looks at her. "Keep wiping," he says, with a smile that stretches a little too far. She did. Then she disappeared 2 months later. Voluntarily relocated, per hour. Here's what insiders say. Shapeshifters can't hold the disguise under high EMF frequencies or strong blue light LED saturation. Live studios, overloaded with signals, can trigger viscous slip or integrity lag. One tech even called it reptilian buffering. Think about that. Buffering, like they're streaming consciousness into bodies they don't fully occupy. I found internal memos from a private security firm tasked with broadcast anomaly detection. Their role wasn't to fix glitches, it was to flag reptilian activity in media. They called it Phase Breach Protocol, Level Y, and claimed it occurred most often during stress-induced emotion, anger, fear, excitement. Ever wonder why high-ranking public figures don't flinch? Don't stammer, don't show real fear? They can't, because if they did, the mask might fall. Insider survival tip. If someone on screen glitches and everyone pretends nothing happened, don't ask questions. Turn off the TV. Now, cited incidents. 2011 Vancouver glitch, hedge fund CEO. 2013 UN Summit Delegate Warp. 2018 Brazilian MP vertical blink, all recorded. All erased within days. Leaked reference. Phase breach, lag class B, mimetic layer disruption due to cross-spectrum interference. Recommend 10-second signal cut and aggressive perception recalibration. Memo from Spectracom Visual Integrity Ops, 2019. Fear isn't just an emotion. It's a resource. For them, most people think reptilians feed like animals, meat, blood, heat. That's the myth. The truth is far stranger. And infinitely more terrifying. They feed on frequency. It started with a dataset leaked from a Pentagon contractor in 2019. The project was called HELIAX, and on the surface, it appeared to be a predictive behavior model, designed to track public emotional states through social media, biometric devices, and population census in major cities. But buried in the logs were terms that didn't make sense in that context. Bioresonant volatility spike, emotive dissonance surge, PHASE5 predator proximity threshold. Then came the graphs, EMF, electromagnetic field, spikes overlaid with mass panic events. The Boston Marathon bombing, the Christchurch shooting, the Beirut explosion, in every case, just seconds before widespread chaos. There was a documented EMF fluctuation far exceeding baseline, spikes not explainable by cell towers, power grids, or weather anomalies. And then, the eyewitness reports. People who claim to see figures in the smoke, or men in skin that looked like plastic melting. Always near the epicenter, but never on camera. Emergency responders sometimes reported hearing clicking, hissing, or voices in languages they didn't recognize. One survivor in Christchurch wrote, "I don't know why I looked up, but on the rooftop, there was something watching us. Its face wasn't right, like a lizard pretending to grieve. These aren't hallucinations. They're manifestations, drawn to us like sharks to blood." I found an ex-Lockheed biophysicist who worked on early HELIAX protocols. He told me that fear emits measurable field distortions, especially communal fear. The more people panic together, the louder the frequency, and something feeds. They don't drain you like vampires. He said, they resonate. Your fear fuels their stabilization. Think of it like thermal energy. But emotional. The more chaos you feel, the clearer they become. The implications are horrifying. That means they don't just tolerate panic. They create it, engineer it, through disasters, through media, through war and terror. Every major tragedy becomes a kind of ritual, a psychic harvest. And here's where it goes deeper. Certain buildings, concert halls, stadiums, protest zones, are constructed at geometric resonance points that amplify emotional frequencies. I mapped 24 major disasters. 19 of them occurred within 500 meters of buildings whose architecture aligned with serpent-based fractal geometry. Coincidence? Then explain this. The EMF bursts were accompanied by short-range bursts of infra-low vibration, a subsonic hum only detectable on specific military-grade sensors. That hum has a name in classified files, Threnody pulse. It signals the arrival of what the documents call serpentis feeding units. I don't know how many there are, but I do know this. Some mass shootings have survivors who recall nothing. Some natural disasters occurred with no geological trigger. Some riots start with one person screaming at something no one else sees. And in all cases, the air gets colder, phones die, and lights flicker, not out of overload, but out of response. Insider survival tip. If a disaster strikes and the air feels wrong, don't film it. Don't scream. Find silence. Hide your fear. Cited events. EMF and infra-low resonance spikes documented during 2013 Boston bombing. 2020 Beirut blast. 2019 Christchurch shooting. Confirmed, blackout gaps in surveillance grids. Leaked reference. Fear-induced theta harmonics produce bioresonant nourishment events. Phase clarity of Serpentis units increases with panic density. HELIAX project memo. Internal Pentagon briefing, 2019. They told us the moon was a rock. A cold, dead remnant. A passive satellite. They lied. In 1976, two Soviet researchers, Vasin and Shabakov, proposed that the moon was artificial. Hollow. They were laughed out of the scientific community. Their paper, Is the Moon the Creation of Intelligence?, vanished from Russian archives in the late 80s. I found it, and I now believe they were right. But they didn't go far enough. The moon isn't just hollow. It's alive, not biologically, but structurally. Operationally, it watches, it collects, it relays. Two former astronauts, both from the Apollo era, told me, off record, heavily redacted, that after landing, they heard rhythmic pulses beneath the surface. Not mechanical, biometric, like a heartbeat embedded in titanium. NASA cut the audio feed 17 minutes early during Apollo 17's surface mission. The public never heard what came next. But someone recorded it. A shortwave operator in Australia captured what sounded like clicking speech layered over static. Deep, wet, reptilian. The translation, still debated, but one phrase was clear. Phase 9 subject awake, eyes on surface. We are that surface. In 2009, an amateur radio astronomer intercepted a low-frequency signal coming from the moon's far side. It repeated every 243 seconds, then changed pitch, like it was adjusting. The waveform matched no known lunar emissions, but it did match the energy profile of Serpentis resonance bursts found in the HELIAX database. Coincidence? In 2021, a contractor embedded with ESA leaked that a new lunar probe, Lunaris IV, was pulled from public launch because it pinged back a response before deployment. Something on the dark side of the moon responded to a passive radar scan. That shouldn't happen. Radar bounces. It doesn't answer. The reptilians didn't come from the moon. They use it as a relay station, a surveillance hub, a frequency stabilizer that keeps their presence in alignment on Earth. One document I recovered referred to it as the chorus node. The moon acts as a phase anchor, holding the vibrational field necessary for long-term reptilian projection in human societies. That's why full moons affect human behavior. That's why people report lucid dreams, sleep paralysis, and hallucinations most often during lunar peaks. They're not dreams. They're synced flashes. The moon isn't passive. It rotates just enough to keep the same face toward us. Why? Because its far side is covered in geometric structures, hexagonal ports, sensor arrays, and what appears to be a living lattice that pulses with faint heat signatures. China's Chang'e 4 mission landed on the far side in 2019. They reported anomalous gel-like material. That's the sanitized version. The real leak, bioluminescent surface compound resembling regenerating skin. And the rover was disabled 43 hours later. Ask yourself, why have we never built a permanent base there? Because it's already taken. Insider survival tip. If your dreams are brighter than your waking hours during a full moon, someone's watching through you. Cited incidents. Apollo 17 com blackout, 1972. Intercepted lunar signal, 2009. Chang'e 4 anomaly, 2019. Lunaris IV pingback, 2021. Leaked reference. Chorus node synchronization maintains terrestrial mimicry across 78% of planetary cortex. Lunar response pulse confirms Serpentis alignment beacon remains functional. Project Selene interference log, 2018. They called it Project Lucid, officially. Longitudinal unconscious cognitive interface development. You were told it was about sleep, dream mapping, emotional stabilization. It wasn't. It was about control, more specifically, detection. The program launched quietly in the early 2000s under DARPA. With civilian-facing partnerships through Wellness Tech, Sleep trackers. Brainwave headbands. Meditation apps. You've seen them. You may even wear one. But beneath the calm marketing lies an invisible screening mechanism. They're not just collecting sleep patterns. They're tracking who sees the cracks. My discovery came in 2018, when I consulted for a digital health startup in San Jose. Their flagship product was a wearable EEG headband designed to improve lucid dreaming. The device used a proprietary algorithm, one we weren't allowed to audit fully, only monitor edge cases. One edge case came up at 3:44 a.m. Pacific time. A 17-year-old beta tester in Arizona triggered an internal alert. Lucidity score exceeded threshold zeta. I had never seen zeta used before. The alert was accompanied by a coded string. Observer interface compromised. Initiate screening. I contacted the developer. He refused to answer directly, but offered a warning. If someone becomes too lucid, they're flagged. The program doesn't just study dreams. It maps reality leaks. Reality leaks. He meant the moments where people see behind the simulation. When your dream turns too coherent. When you suddenly recognize symbols you've never learned. Languages you can speak fluently in your sleep. Rooms you remember, but never visited. That's not your subconscious. That's memory echo. Residue from interactions with reptilian illusions. Moments your brain registered, but your waking mind was forced to forget. Project Lucid's true purpose was to find people who can see through it. And eliminate them. How? With sleep paralysis. You think that presence hovering over you at 3 a.m. is neurological static. No, that's them, watching, waiting, not attacking, just confirming, is this one aware? If you open your eyes at the wrong second, you might see the true form. And then you'll never sleep right again. A friend who worked as a private sleep technician at a military recovery hospital told me some of the patients weren't injured, they were flagged. They weren't recovering, they were being reprogrammed. She once found a man restrained mid-REM, hooked to an IV, hooked to a machine that pulsed in sync with lunar phase charts. Not heart rate, not EEG. The moon, lucid, like the chorus node, was connected to the lunar grid. The deeper you dream, the closer you get to remembering. But if you remember too much, you're tagged. The final version of the software wasn't sold. It was distributed, through wellness grants, through sleep studies, through your phone. Yes, your phone. The accelerometer, the front-facing camera, the microphone that activates only while you snore. It's all the same system. Now ask yourself, why does your phone tell you when you're in REM? And more importantly, who else gets that notification? Because every night, they scan, not your body, your mind. Inside a survival tip. If you become lucid mid-dream and a door appears, do not open it. That's their checkpoint. Cited incidents. Lucid tag Zeta case. 2018, multiple civilian sleep paralysis events logged in synchrony with lunar pulses. EEG dream state anomalies suppressed. Leaked reference. Lucid state resonance above Zeta disrupts perceptual sheath. Entities must initiate behavioral drift before conscious tether stabilizes. Project Lucid internal memo. Neuro Division, 2016. It happened 5 months ago. I wasn't chasing leads anymore. I was done. Burned too many bridges. Lost too many people. I told myself I'd walk away. But the truth doesn't let you go. It watches. I was in an old mining town in Nevada. No cell reception. No cameras. I went there because it was off the grid. Or so I thought. I rented a cabin from a man with eyes that didn't match his age. He never blinked. Always wore gloves. I should have known. The first 3 nights, I barely slept. The dreams were too clear. Rooms I'd never seen. Voices whispering in reverse. And always, that door. On the 4th night, I heard it. Not outside. Not in the cabin. Beneath it. A clicking sound. Slow. Rhythmic. Familiar from recordings I never should have had access to. I grabbed my recorder. It shorted out. I checked my phone. Dead. Not drained. Off. Like something had erased the batteries will to exist. Then I felt it. Not footsteps. Weight. Something pressing down on reality. Like gravity was being twisted. The floorboards creaked, but not under footsteps. More like a liquid presence flowing upright. I froze. My eyes locked on the hallway. I don't know how it got inside. But it was there. Tall. Lithe. The skin wasn't green. It was iridescent. Like oil in water. Its body shimmered, rippled, like it couldn't fully hold one form. It didn't blink. Its eyes were voids. vertical, endless, hungry. It didn't walk. It glided. I tried to speak, tried to ask what it wanted, but my voice evaporated in my throat. Then it tilted its head. Not like a human, like a predator testing its prey's response time. And then, it spoke. You see me, that means it's over. Not a threat, a statement. I don't know what happened next. I woke up outside, in the snow, with dried blood beneath my nose and claw-shaped bruises along my ribs, beneath my clothes, which were still intact. No tracks, no cabin key, just a scrap of black cloth in my pocket, stamped with a glyph I've only seen in Serpentis files labeled breached host, recall pending. The illusion is gone now. I see the others, on the street, in interviews, on billboards. Their faces don't hold, their smiles stretch too long, their pupils flex sideways under sunlight. And worst of all, I think they see me too. I've had 7 near misses in the past month. Car accidents, gas leaks, one elevator that dropped 9 floors before stopping. Every time, a man in a grey coat was nearby. Same face, different cities. I don't think he's human. I don't think any of this is. This isn't paranoia. It's not psychosis. It's clarity, and it's contagious. You've felt it too, haven't you? The static behind your thoughts. The sense that someone's watching through the mirror, not at your reflection, but through it. They're done hiding. The final phase has begun. Breaches are increasing. Glitches are stabilizing. The masks, our perception, is fracturing. And when it breaks completely, there will be no reveal. Just adjustment. A cold, elegant correction of reality. Inside a survival tip. If you see one, and it sees you back, don't run. It already knows where you'll go. Cited incident. Unconfirmed Serpentis breach. Rural Nevada, 2024. Recovered glyph fragment matches classified host termination protocols. Leaked reference. Subject achieved unsanctioned visibility. Behavioral quarantine ineffective. Prepare integration. Phase Directive S breach memo, 2024. If you're still watching this, I'm already gone. Maybe not physically, but whatever tether I had to the old world, the safe world, is severed. Every noise is louder now. Every face, slightly off. The sky seems closer, the air, thinner, like the world's skin is peeling. I hear static in my walls. A clicking in my sleep. I see glyphs that weren't there yesterday. Burned into reflections, on windows. Water, even my own eyes. I'm leaving this file behind because someone needs to know. The reptilians aren't coming. They're here. They've always been. And worse, they've already won. We think we're the dominant species. But look at how we panic. How we turn on each other. How we collapse under fear. That's not a flaw. It's a design. They tuned us to be resonant. To emit fear, doubt, confusion, fuel. We are signal towers for their sustenance. And the only thing they fear is recognition. That moment of stillness when the illusion fractures. When the smile glitches. When the blink is wrong. That's when they know you see them. And that's when they act. So if this video finds you, really finds you, ask yourself. Have you seen them? Has the air gone cold? Have your dreams started to bleed into waking? Don't answer aloud. Just stay quiet. Stay small. And remember, end of file. If you still remember any of this by morning, they didn't find you.